I got this from Tim Ferriss, who wrote in The 4-Hour Body, the fastest way to change any behavior is to track it. That line always stuck with me because he made the argument that when you track yourself, you raise your awareness, you see yourself, you're shining a light on your patterns. Yo, Chris, man, what are you doing? What are you up to?
I'm just helping people reinvent their lives. No big deal.
Yeah, no big deal. Well, I'm going to join in. Cool.
God bless, we're breaking these runs. Life too short to play it on speed run.
All right, Todd, what are we talking about today?
Well, Chris, I'm going to go a little off script today because I woke up and realized that it's the first day of the Winter Olympics. And man, ever since I was a kid, I've been enthralled with the Olympics and just the notion of people training for years on end to compete in one singular event with the hope of standing on a podium for one shining moment as the world sings their national anthem in celebration of their golden victory. Man, I got to be honest, it always gets me teared up. And I don't know if you know this about me, but I had the chance to coach a few Olympic athletes years back, and I was so moved by their dedication and commitment to what they were doing. And the two things that always stood out to me about them was, first, clarity. Yes, Chris, these people all have pinpoint clarity with what they are trying to accomplish in life, and it gives them purpose and meaning and drive on a day-to-day basis. And the second is accountability. They are surrounded by people who are helping them, motivating them, and coaching them, and also supporting them in a variety of ways. And you may think that this has nothing to do with us, right? Like midlife professionals who are reinventing their careers, but it has everything to do with us. Because our goal here, and my personal mission in life, is to help people realize that, look, man, this life is short. It's a damn blip in the matrix. So the best approach is to take it on and to go for it fully without reservation, just like these Olympians do. And this is why we spend a lot of time talking about clarity and the value of getting that clear vision for your future. But Chris, what we haven't talked about that much yet is accountability. And the one thing that kills successful reinvention more than anything else is isolation. And it's a cultural disease of isolating oneself and solely living in the echo chamber of one's own head that thwarts creativity and smart decision-making more than anything else. So listeners, please get out a pen and paper, take notes, and bookmark this episode because we're going to share how you can create a system of accountability that will lead to your success and fulfillment fast, just like the Olympians use. And we're covering two primary strategies. One is self-assessment and how to think about building a personal tracking system. And the second is external accountability and how to find peer groups and communities and even friends who can structurally help you move forward with confidence. So Chris, before we jump into the strategies, I see that you're chomping at the bit to share more about this. What's up?
Well, dude, I love you sharing the frame of the Olympics. I mean, I'm really excited about the Olympics. My daughters love watching the Olympics, and it's kind of like a thing that we always just try to find the time, be on at weird times or you watch it at night. And my younger daughter she's a gymnast and she loves watching, this is the Winter Olympics, but she loves watching the gymnastics in the Summer Olympics and being so focused on the beauty of it. She's like, I want to be in the Olympics, right? And we won't talk about the percentage likelihood of that,
Right.
But one of the things that you brought up that really resonates with me as I think about her is like, there's the dream, but then there's the doing and all the doing. Like as a parent, I think about, hey, if you really wanted to go pursue high-level gymnastics or the Olympics, that's getting up at 6 a.m, or that's going and working out 15 times a week. That's all this effort and all this commitment. And when I think about the people who are in reinvention and career reinvention, we help people get clear on the dream. We help them get that clarity. But if you don't have accountability and hold yourself accountable and get support from the people around you, it's just a dream. It doesn't become a reality. And so I think this topic is all about making the dream a reality with accountability.
Yeah. I mean, I think you're right on. And I've shared this with you personally. It actually gets me angry. It really does get me angry how much we are all living in isolation, especially just getting down to brass tacks, right? Like we're talking about reinventing your career. For a lot of people, structurally, what this means is that we're sitting at home, we get up in the morning, we have our routines, we do what we do, and then we kind of go on our computer and we're trying to figure things out. And we're launching our new consulting business, or we're reaching out to people and we're on LinkedIn, we're doing all these various things, right? And we're trying really hard to figure out how to set the foundation for our next 10, 15, 20 years or more, right? And it is a very isolating thing to be doing this. And it enrages me because most of us are not looking at our networks and our friends and communities out there as real resources that can help us move forward faster, okay? And that's why I want to really dive in today and not only motivate you as our listeners to start to think about how you can get accountability as a major part of your life, but also give you the structure for how to do it, okay? And so getting clarity piece and having a vision is so important because you got to have that excitement, right? And so for the Olympic athletes that I was training, they did have that vision of them standing on that podium, you know, with the gold medal around their neck, and that drove them. That drove them. Most of us don't have that vision. We don't know what our gold medal moment is. We just don't, right? And even to think about it seems so weird or pie in the sky or like, wow, I'm really far away from that level of pinpoint clarity to be able to do that. That's why we talk a lot about clarity here, because you got to have that because it does motivate you. It creates something intrinsic. But then this other piece of understanding how to have a system of tracking yourself, okay, which needs to be self-motivated. You need to be able to do that yourself with the understanding that that's going to help you raise your awareness levels around the things that you're not seeing and the things that you need to do. And then secondly, finding groups of people that can shine a direct light on what your thoughts are, your activities are, your behaviors are, so that way you can start to redirect them towards being in alignment with the things that you really want to have happen. To me, it's like a perfect system of success and transformation, getting clear and using accountability. So we're going to get into strategies today, right? But I just want to frame this out that we're really trying to help people move the needle here in their lives, right? And these things that sound tactical are also deeply embedded in how success works.
There are to be two flavors of accountability, right? Like you said, holding yourself accountable and being accountable to others and having people that you work with. I mean, what resonates for me, like I have a whole team of people. Obviously, you're my business partner. We work together on things, but there are fellow coaches who I talk shop with, and there are really close friends who know the ins and outs of what I'm going through. Obviously, there's our community, our reinvention community, those people. It's very mutual. Like there's accountability going both directions. What's important for me is it's people who I can really share the ins and outs and the details of, and they know it fairly intimately so they can contextualize it because it's right in the word. They can hold me accountable because it's not just about rah, rah, Chris, pick your chin up. You can do it, buddy. Mm-hmm. It's when I'm being a little shady or shirky about it, where I'm like, well, I couldn't get that thing done or whatever. It's having people who are close enough and like, I know they're in my corner that they can say, hold on a second. You said you were going to do that, actually. You committed that you were going to do that thing and you were going to make that effort or whatever it is. You need that tough love dynamic in there too. And that comes from a place of deep connection and trust. So I think it's important to think about when you're talking about the community aspect of this, who can you enlist? Really, I think it's always best when you establish a mutual accountability where you are both able to, from love, hold each other's feet to the fire of what you've committed to do because you're helping someone realize their dream. So you sometimes have to say the thing that's a little uncomfortable to push them to do it. And that's a really important element of this.
Yeah, man, you're hitting on some gold there. You know, I'm going to maybe use our Olympic colors, you know, throughout our conversation
today.
That's
gold, Jerry.
It's gold, Jerry. It's gold. Okay, so Seinfeld, Olympics, we're bouncing around here. But let's talk about external accountability because that's where you went with this, okay? Because I do want to get to self-tracking as well as part of the structure of this call because that's also another important piece. But the thing that I've learned about this, okay, and this is in 20 years of trial and error about how do I surround myself with a team of people that can work for me, you know, not work for me, but like it works for me to have people, you know. And what I learned the hard way was that certain people are not the right accountability partners in certain areas. I'll give you a very clear example. When I first started realizing the value of having accountability, I was like, oh, my wife, she's got to be my number one accountability partner. And so I was just throwing everything at her, like everything I was going through. And that was not the right call. in my opinion, marriage can be a wonderful thing, but it's not that that person solves every problem for you, can handle everything. Like she has her own stuff she's dealing with. And so I started to realize that having boundaries or having clarity about what she is made of to hold me accountable, and then what do I need outside of that? So it was very clear that being an entrepreneur and the ups and downs of that emotional roller coaster ride wasn't something that was healthy for our marriage. It wasn't a good accountability partner to have her do that. So I was like, oh, I need to have other people outside of that can hold me accountable on the emotional level of the things that I go through. At times it's been a therapist, at times it's been coaching, right? The other day, you got off a call and you're like, oh, I'm talking to my coach. Like, you're a coach, but you have coaches. This is what we're talking about. Okay, do not do it alone. So what you want to do, is you're getting good at this, is start to write out, like assignment from this episode, write out on a piece of paper who could be your accountability partners, right? Like, could you hire somebody? Do you need a therapist? Do you need to understand very clearly what you can talk about with your business partner and what you can talk about with your wife? Because it's not a one person solves the whole problem. It may be that you need a team. And that's exactly what the Olympians had. They all have teams of people that are holding them accountable in certain areas. They have nutritionists, they have physical trainers, they have mental people. That's what I was hired to do. So that's how you want to start thinking about this, right? Is in general, what's the landscape and how can you start being smart about who you have in your corner as your team? And this is what people aren't doing, Chris. This is why I get enraged, because everyone's alone and they're by themselves. And now they're talking to ChatGPT. ChatGPT is not going to hold you accountable. Okay. It is not. You can't train it yet to really hold you accountable. You need a human. You need humans here.
It's a little tangent, but I got to go there because I had a conversation actually with the one-on-one client recently around this. I'm like, yeah, you can train your AI chatbots a little bit to be, their default setting is, that's a great idea, Chris. Oh, you're so smart, Chris. Oh my God, what a great idea. It's like, that's their default setting. And you can be like, hey, hold me accountable. Like, don't be so positive on everything I do. Challenge me, whatever. But still, I was talking to this client the other day and they were like, oh, they said that this is a great idea and I sort of don't need to workshop it anymore. And like, I'll just be able to walk out into the world and sell this, no problem. And I was like, what? That's not, you can't sell a new idea, no problem. It could be the greatest idea in the world. You still have to have a sales process and a plan around that. I just use that as a tangential example because I hear a lot about people tapping into AI from a coaching or even scarily therapy perspective or having that be their main interaction. And I'm not saying that there's not going to be benefits of it and that even we can't develop tools that are going to provide support in those ways. But if you're using off-the-shelf ChatGPT or Claude or something as your main accountability buddy, you're going to have a lot of problems. Mm-hmm. It just cannot deliver it. Going back to what I said a few minutes ago, it's not going to understand your specific blockers, the things that you run into that are kind of unique to you. And that's where these deep relationships with other human beings really come into play because we pattern recognize and we can see, oh, she's doing that thing again that I've seen before. And so we can reflect it back to you, right? That's why it's so important that the people you're assembling, this team, it's really people who on a core level love you and you deeply trust. Mm-hmm. It's very important.
It's this feeling of being on a team. For those of us that played sports or, had those experiences when we were younger, they tend to diminish for most people as time goes on. And we feel very isolated and alone, which is why I said in the intro that isolation is the thing that we're really battling against. And the point of this episode is to reestablish our need for team, for our need for teamwork. I want you who's listening to this right now to think, I need a team assembled around me. And I am going to fearlessly go ahead and create different groups, different coaches, different people that are in my corner. Okay. And you did touch on something before that I think is also so valuable here, which it's not just about me getting the value and the self-reflection from this. The real benefit of this, if you can also find a situation where you are then giving back your reflection and your wisdom, okay, this is so huge. When you are helping someone else see their faux pas or like things that they can't see and you're gently pointing it out, in a safe environment. This is such a beautiful part about being a human, right? You and I are doing this all the time. And it's also one of the reasons why when we talk about reinvention and how we're helping people, this podcast is the main thing, but we have a community that will never go off. And it's not a 6-week course about how to reinvent your career. I'm not knocking 6-week courses to do X, Y, Z, but that was a business choice because I want to have this thing on for years because I know that those relationships, as they get deeper, you really find that family feeling. We're already seeing it in our community where people are really supporting each other. We're creating that feeling of family and friendship and like, we're all in this together. Like, yeah, we're all reinventing. It's a little bit unknown and we all have fears, but like we're showing up on calls and we're showing up with our ideas and we're sharing vulnerably as much as we all can, whether it could be in a breakout session or in a main session that, hey, we got stuff going on. And this is part of the healing, but it's also part of the amplification of success. If you want success in this life and you want fulfillment, don't isolate. That's the message here. And do whatever you need to do. And we're going to give some more specifics about what to look for to get yourself that team. That's what you need. Okay. And this will help you tactically get to that success and fulfillment faster.
The beauty of giving support to someone and giving accountability to someone is a great element here. And I appreciate that you mentioned that. I also want to mention just like there's a practical, tactical element of it, which we all experience with our people in the reinvention community. Twice a week, we experience this. When you're holding someone else accountable, you're giving to them that support. You're also hearing yourself say that. And what that triggers a lot of times is to say, oh, am I doing my version of that? Am I actually living up to the support I'm giving that person? Because we've said this before, and it's very true. It's easier for us a lot of times to say to someone else, to hold someone else almost in a more caring way than we hold ourselves. And to say, hey, you really should like take that chance or push that thing or say that, give your elevator pitch to those people because your business deserves to grow. It's such a great idea. We hear ourselves saying that and we have to reflect. So I think there's a practical element of the bi-directional accountability process too. And you made a great analogy to team sports. It really is that team thing where it's who cares who gets the assist, who cares who gets the points. We created this thing together. It does allow us to tap into that feeling that, I haven't had that feeling really in 30 years from a sport itself or a team, but this is a real living version of that.
Yeah. And we need it, and for me, it's such a big part of what I look for in my own success and my own fulfillment. And I'm not scared to spend money on it. I have 2 coaches right now that I spend money on. I think a lot of people kind of, oh, well, yeah, I'll just talk to Chad or I'll find a couple of friends. Like, that's fine. This can also work. It's also okay to find a community, to find a coach, surround yourself, put your energy into your own growth, right? Invest in yourself, invest in other people. Like this is part of the transformation that people I think are waking up to that, we don't want to like look at this as something that is just like a nice thing to have. It's actually a foundational human need to be connected. And just the way that the world has evolved, we're isolated. Like you and I have only met one time, but we built this business together. What can we do to really deepen those connections and understand with clarity what this relationship or what this group of people can give me and what can I give it? And so the way that I look at it is how much time a week am I spending in an accountability setting, right? Meaning that how much time am I spending with you? How much time am I spending with my coaches? How much time am I spending with my community? It's not all you're doing, but it's a significant portion of my time is spent in the system of who I am and the system of how I want to run my life. Then the operations and just doing stuff and having fun, it actually frees me up because I feel like I have like a whole team of people that are supporting me behind me that I didn't have before. I looked at this as a very, very real thing. Okay. And so that's the thing that athletes get it and people that are living in certain types of companies get it. But when you leave corporate, you feel alone and you feel isolated. And so we got to be able to recreate that. And there just are ways to do that. And I think I also want to switch it over to the self-accountability piece, the self-assessment, which is part of the same family, but this is keeping yourself on track. Okay, that's why we have this as part of the same episode. And to me, it's like part of the same philosophy, but it's a different thing. And when we talk about this, it's kind of having some level of tracking system where you track yourself once a week or once a month or whatever. And we can get into details and our recommendations on this. But what are your thoughts on this? As you were going through your reinvention, were you tracking yourself or were you just out there willy-nilly, our favorite word?
There it is.
Because I think most people are just kind of out there with having no awareness of what they're actually doing. I'm curious about your thoughts on this and where you're at with it right now.
Yeah, Todd, I feel like you're leading the witness here because I think you know the answer to this question a little bit. Like, objection. Yeah, I mean, in the beginning, it's not that I wasn't holding myself accountable to get the things done, but I didn't have a strategy for it. And I didn't have a procedure and a system for it that was effective. And so with the absence of that, it was easy in a sense to say, on any given Tuesday, what really had to get done? A bunch of incremental things that added up to bigger things down the road. If those things didn't get done, the impact of that wasn't really felt, right? It wasn't really clear. Meanwhile, if I go back to corporate, of course, if the PowerPoint presentation had to be with the CEO by Wednesday, it was either with the CEO by Wednesday or not. So you either got a scathing email or you got the document to the CEO. And so accountability is built in a very granular way into the infrastructure of a corporate life. But for me on my own through my reinvention, when I was really out there in the beginning, hanging my own shingle, I didn't really have a system for it. And yeah, I use my calendar to track the work I'm doing and my to-do list and things like that, but it wasn't really structured and regular, right? It was, we'll put the things on where we think we're going to do the work and we'll kind of get to it and maybe we'll move it around a little bit. It's also just about micro level clarity of not waking up every morning and being like, well, what do I pull from the to-do list?
Yep, exactly.
I'll give it back to you in a minute, but we mentioned how recently I had a coach that I worked with that really made a positive difference in some of the work that we're doing together. And what came out in that session with her is my choice to have my planning meeting with myself that was at 2:30 p.m. and realizing that that was like a subconscious, maybe deprioritization choice around planning. Because when I hit 2:30 p.m., like that is the dead zone for me, right? And shifting that to earlier in the day, like I put it at like 8:30 in the morning now, as soon as I get my kid out the door, and committing to the value of that and making that part of the everyday, and therefore having clarity of what all the work is going to be done each day. That was an absolute sea change in the way that I approached my day. And so that's one of those things where maybe we'll call it faux accountability was there, where I had this thing on my calendar of like, yes, I will plan each workday, but I wasn't really honoring it and realizing, pulling this to a time when I'm going to be focused on it and it's going to set me up for the work I will then immediately subsequently do. That's pretty tactical, I guess, as an example. How do you hold this accountability?
Here's the thing. Our recommendation is for people listening, have some form of tracking mechanism where you're tracking yourself in general, okay? And I want to share upfront that just the act of doing this does not mean that you're just going to today create a tracking system that's going to be the thing that you use for the next 4 years. No, it's going to change. It's going to evolve. It's going to morph into, if you're doing it right, the thing that can actually be used by yourself over the long term, because it always changes, okay? It's more of a mindset that I'm tracking myself. If I look at the evolution of my own personal tracking over the years, you have no idea, Chris. I mean, it has gone through so many different iterations, but I'm always doing it. I'm always thinking about it. I'm tracking stuff weekly. I'm tracking stuff monthly. I give myself numbers. I've tracked things like the basics, like how much do I work out, the things that I eat. And I got this from Tim Ferriss, who wrote in The 4-Hour Body, the fastest way to change any behavior is to track it. I mean, that line always stuck with me because he made the argument that when you track yourself, you raise your awareness. You see yourself. You're shining a light on your patterns just by tracking, what are you doing? Oh, you're looking at it. You're looking at it. You're looking at it. One of my favorite business books of all time is something called The Diamond Cutter. Okay, well, we've never talked about this between you and I.
No.
The Diamond Cutter is like unbelievable business book. It's a business book, but it's also a Buddhist business book, believe it or not. And he talks a lot about it. We could talk about this in another episode, but he talks a lot about some of these Buddhist principles of tracking that he used to build, a 20, 30, $40 million company. This guy was a monk in India for like 20 years. And then he came back and used these principles to like build a big business, and tracking is a part of it. So for me, I've played with tracking like the mundane, like what am I doing? I've also tracked qualities. right? So if I think about a quality like, being creative or generosity, like that have value in alignment, I should say, with the kind of person that I see myself, being at my very best, you can even track qualities, ways of being in the world. I mean, this is like one of those things that easy to get. Yeah, I need to track myself and I get that it will change my behavior. But there's a rabbit hole here that's really beautiful once you go down it. And you start to understand from a lot of years of doing this that tracking myself and self-assessing where I'm at all the time gives me such empowerment to see my patterns that I wouldn't be able to see. Because yes, you get the same thing from having external partners. Like, all right, somebody's shining a light. Somebody's giving me some gentle feedback in these various ways. It could be a business partner, it could be your wife, it could be a group like ours, it could be friends. But you also have the ability to do that yourself. You can implement sheets right now that will give you the ability to see where you're off and how easily you go off. And I've seen so much value, Chris, in people doing this. It's been unbelievable and transformative for people to start tracking themselves because like, oh my God, I was wasting so much time. I hear that all the time. Or I was stuck in the same cyclical pattern for like years and now I broke through it in weeks because I simply started to write down every week what I was doing. I mean, I hear this again and again. So that's why I wanted to do an episode on it because I was like, this is a very important thing for reinventors. Let's get serious here. Let's go for it. Let's see who we are. Let's see what we're doing. Let's track it so we can kind of raise our awareness. What comes up from you? I know
I want to emphasize that I think you made it. That's a beautiful point, and bringing in values and the ways of being and incorporating that. Because I can imagine someone listening is going to say, how am I going to rate my generosity on a scale of 1 to 10?
Totally. Yeah.
How do I quantify this abstract concept? And I want to emphasize, and this goes for the abstract concepts and it goes for the concrete concepts too, for the most part. It's not about the perfection of it was a 7.38 versus an 8.10 or whatever it is. Yeah, some things like we have KPIs in our business that are metrics that are discrete, that the numbers are the numbers. But there's also the more abstract, harder to quantify things. It sort of doesn't matter. What matters in this exercise is the self-reflection, the view of it with intentionality and presence and awareness to look at it, to take the time to take a step back and look at it with some metacognition, with awareness of, as you said, Todd, patterns and the gap between what you want to do on a macro dream level and what actually happens on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. That is really the important part of this. Yeah, the numbers do matter, but if your generosity is a 7 versus a 7.5, like I don't know how to make that distinction, but it's the focus and thinking and caring about it. And I think on a bigger level, it's also just having built into your behavior, planning to step back and look at it from above. Right. And not just be in it all the time. It's a concept we've talked about a lot of times. I mean, I think it is a bit of a Buddhist concept to step out of the river for a moment and to reflect and to look at it and to say, I'm governing my life. I'm not just sort of ping-ponging my way through my life and having things happen to me. And this is a really critical part of that. This is really that abstraction and slight distance to step out and say, oh, if I don't like the way it's going, that's not happening to me. I'm allowing that to happen. So what am I going to do differently to make the life I want happen?
Yeah, man. I mean, look, we're going back to the core premise that we got together on, which is that for people that are in this kind of reinvention mode, right, where it can create some fear, concern, I got to nail my finances, I got to get, and then, you kind of meet us and we take you down the rabbit hole with some pretty deep stuff around mindset, like deep patterning. But this is really the difference between somebody that's looking to maybe pivot careers, like, oh, I need to pivot my career. I got laid off or the writing's on the wall and I'm burned out, and reinvention. Reinvention is an opportunity to look at yourself just for a moment. It's an opportunity to be like, okay, what am I really made of? What do I really want? And to start to figure that out so you can align your future decision-making and your present moment decision-making with that version of yourself that you're striving to become, and not the one that's based on your old trajectory and your old patterns. That's the opportunity, which is why we're doing this. It's very different than just, I need to make a career pivot. If that's what you want to do, that's great. You can still benefit from listening to Chris and I, but like, we're here for the human part of this. We're here for the part where it's like, who do you really want to be? And can your work now morph into something that is aligned with that version of yourself? That's reinvention, right? And I think that's what you're talking to. So when we tie this back to tracking yourself and finding accountability partners, we're giving you like a really big key to the kingdom of that, in a sense, which is these are tools that you can use to raise your self-awareness. So that way you can start to really see how you're operating. And it's humbling because when you start doing it, tell you the truth, like you're going to start to see, wow, like I'm not as effective and productive. And the way that I actually operate in the day-to-day is not always in alignment with that. That's okay. It's totally okay. It's normal. We're all human, but we can get better. We can all be doing better. For me, it's not about perfection, but it is about striving to be attuned with that version of me that I know I feel is the best of me. When I look at you as my business partner, I'm like, what can I do to help this brother become the best version of him? You said that a lot to me, by the way. You've always given me that reflection. And in our community, who are these humans that we're talking to on these Zoom calls? What can we do to help them become the best versions of them? Let's get down to that place. And then guess what happens? Our work and our money making and our abundance, it tends to come out in the wash in a really good way. So I just want to reiterate what you just said, man. This is deep stuff because it is deep stuff. Like I said in the very beginning, we're here for a short time. Let's make the most of it.
You've ever heard the phrase, like, it's like someone has to be held accountable. Who's going to be held accountable for this? It can have almost like a negative connotation. We're saying the exact opposite in this moment. Accountability is a beautiful thing. It is an act of love. It is an act of self-love. It is an act of love for the people you are holding accountable. The people who are holding you accountable are loving you, because you will not make your dream a reality if you don't hold yourself accountable in the little times. And that's what the tracking approach, we talked about this in our community recently about weekly tracking and monthly tracking, and we gave some specific numerical tracking to apply it. It really is the little decisions you're making every day and during the week that can add up to really little acts of love that create the dream you're working towards. There's no other way to do it.
Well, you can not do it and then just be a victim to circumstance, or you can be empowered and implement a tracking tool and just shine more light on what's happening here. That's the pull, man. That's the pull. And that's why I love what we're doing here, and that we're sharing this, because it represents everything that I've learned in all these years of coaching people, like of things that work. If you got to this point in this episode, there's something that you want about your future that isn't in existence right now. And all we're saying is that assessment and tracking are tools that are universally accepted as working when it comes to doing that. And so start playing with them. And so, as we kind of close this one out, Chris, the assignment is for you to really think about this from the standpoint of, how can I start to self-assess myself? What type of tracking can I implement? I would recommend some form of weekly check-in checklist like we have in our community. And if you want to message us and we'll share with you the documents that we had. We are happy to share that with you because we want you to start playing with this and start using this notion of checking in weekly and then even checking in monthly. Monthly is different than weekly. Weekly is more of kind of a punch list. Monthly is a little bit more of kind of reflection and how did I do this last month? These tools don't take that long to use, okay? But they're consistent beacons that shine a light on your patterns. Because what you said was so wise, Chris. You said, life happens, like it happens in moments. It's the moments, the Tuesday at 11:15, like what are you doing in that moment? That's the kind of thing that we need to transform and get better at, as opposed to just when you're listening to this and you're really deeply inspired. It's the mundane moments that our life is being made. And that's what tracking and assessment does. It helps you to shine a deeper light on those areas. And I'm glad that we did this conversation, man. And I love talking about it with you because there's so much resonance. We didn't even prepare for this. We just got on and said, let's just jam on it and see what happens.
Yeah.
And I think it was really good, man.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I say this to you all the time, just as my partner in this stuff. And it's so life-changing for me in terms of just the clarity that I am moving towards the things I want for myself and for you and for our community. And it really is very, very powerful. And like you said, it's not like you have to invest hours and hours and hours and hours on it. It's small commitments, and then it's playing out those small commitments on a daily basis and tracking them. it's really been life-changing. Yeah, man, I really appreciate you. And this is a great conversation.
Yeah, man, let's go. Yeah, as part of your ritual, subscribe to our podcast because Chris and I, we're just really committed to this conversation over the long haul, right? And so you can use these episodes as kind of a linchpin to what you're doing. If you're interested in checking out our website at reinvention.biz, you can check out what we're doing. We always mention our community, but we invite you to check out that page and look at it. And also we have the workbook that is really powerful that you can use as a self-study that could really help in your reinvention. So look at some of the tools that we have on our website, follow along our podcast. We love doing this. We know it's being helpful for some out there, and we would love to continue to serve you in any way that makes sense. And yeah, we'll see you next time. And Chris, as always, it's so much fun being here with you. And until next time, my friends.